Friends, welcome to this video. This is Raw Deal. This is Yakov. Today I would like to talk about a very interesting topic, and this topic is an important one, particularly because in recent times we've been discussing and even posting yoga, hatha yoga complexes and various asanas on this channel, and we need to discuss what makes yoga different from, say, gymnastics. I'm bringing this topic up because in the Western society, it is a common notion to associate the word yoga with something like flexibility, right? So people say, oh, you feel tight, well, go do yoga. And that seems to be, there is this problem you have, and here is this solution, you just kind of smack it on that problem. This view is wrong on many levels. For example, one layer is that flexibility that comes as a result of yoga is a side effect. It's not the main goal, right? That's already probably shattering so many misconceptions, right? Or I guess different views that people have about this subject. There are also other problems with this, and some of them we're going to discuss in this video. So, what makes yoga different from just a set of exercises? If you are living in the Western society, you probably encountered this notion that, yoga is this stuff people just do on the mat, and this is what they do, and they get flexible as a result. And, I don't know, maybe they make some namaste signs, or maybe they sing some mantras and do some other things, and that's yoga. But mostly yoga is just this physical stuff, right? So purely at the physical level, and that's what happens. So, I would posit that the main difference between true hatha yoga and yoga as gymnastics, or the way it's treated in the current Western society, I would even dub it Instagram yoga, because a lot of people who are doing this kind of stuff are at first attracted to it because of some cool poses somebody did on Instagram. And I'm not criticizing that, because probably at their level of development, that's what attracted them, and they're attracted to some, forms and shapes and material things. And I guess it's fine in a sense if that leads them further along the path, and this is where they got traction, but then later somebody explains to them that, look, this Instagram stuff goes nowhere. You need to really start working with your mind, because everything is at the mind level. And if that's the case, then so be it. It's a great thing. But if they get stuck there forever at the physical level, or even get stuck at the level of just practicing physically, for example, I personally think, and this is, as I said, this is not to criticize anyone, but just I think Ashtanga Vinyasa community is certainly susceptible to this kind of, let's call it sin, right? Where they just get stuck on the physical level for a long time. And do they work with the mind? No question. But as I said, my view is that they get stuck there. They could be moving along so much faster. So back to our topic. Suppose we have a person who is a gymnast or an acrobat, or a person along those lines, right? Somebody with some great flexibility, with a lot of ability to do all this kind of physical stuff, who will probably outdo an average yogi, right? Or somebody attending a yoga studio, or even having a personal practice. And the question we must ask is, spiritually, is this person, meaning this acrobat or gymnast, further along than, some yogi? Suppose we have also a yogi who is doing it the right way, right? Whatever the right way means, we're going to explain in a second. But I would argue that it's actually quite the opposite. So the gymnast, despite all this flexibility, is not actually more spiritually developed, or whatever that even means. But the point I'm trying to make is that flexibility does not equal success in yoga, or the fact that person advanced further along in yoga, right? And I get that I'm probably countering a lot of kind of Western ideas that are currently present in the society, because a lot of people, they choose who teaches them yoga by looking at the pictures or how cool or flexible or whatever other stuff that person can do. In fact, I mean, it's so bizarre to me that I don't even know where to begin talking about it, because like if you want a quick criteria on how to choose your teacher, probably looking at the life that teacher leads should be one of the first things, right? And certainly not the flexibility, because flexibility can come and go. And yes, I did say it can come and it can go because of certain things, right? If certain energies come to the person, if certain problems from the students come to that person, the flexibility will go. Will all of it go? Probably not, but it can be drastically reduced. And most people who lead an adequate life and have taught anything, they will know what I'm talking about. So that's a bit of a side point. But going back to the topic, so we have a society that chooses teachers based on the physical stuff, and they practice yoga as the physical stuff. So back to our gymnast. Why is he or she not further along? Well, simply because being flexible has nothing to do with working the mind, because spiritual development is strictly the mind development. Yes, I know there's this idea in yoga that it's all, the mind, body, and spirit, right? And it's a nice little fairy tale. I mean, fairy tale for a certain level of people, but essentially there's only mind. I mean, if you want, if you wish, I'm introducing perhaps like a, kind of a Buddhist-like view or whatever, but there's really the mind, and the mind reflects everything that happens, right? So if a person comes to this world and has a certain body, right, that's determined by all the actions this person has done in the past. So it's an accumulation of all kinds of karmic stuff. It's basically this bundle of stuff that shows up, and this is the kind of body this person has. Right, there are also things like destiny and things that are going to happen to that person, some experiences this person will live through. That's also determined by that. But body is the primary reflection, right? So if the person has some problems or certain tendencies of the mind, they will be reflected in the body, right? What are some examples? Well, for example, if a person has some tightnesses in the legs, say like ankles, knees, that's probably something that pertains to the lower worlds. So it's things like killing or fear, right? Those kinds of raw, kind of animalistic emotions. Problems in the hip joints, so tightness is there, right? Inability to, for example, to go in the lotus pose. Well, I mean, there are many problems with it, but basically hip joints is probably something along the lines of greed, perhaps jealousy and things like that. All right. For men, for example, a lot of fear gets stored in the back part of the leg. So things like hamstrings. So there is tightness there. And believe me, this is not some, I was flexible as a child and then I got tight during adult life, so I don't believe anything I'm saying. I've had an opportunity of observing children at young age. I'm talking about 5 or 6. And, these are children of yogis, and they will follow along with their parents trying to do asanas. You know how kids, they're like little parrots, so they try to repeat everything they see or they hear. So, and these children, I would realize that, they can do a lot of these asanas, they're pretty flexible, but there are certain asanas, and they're not difficult asanas by any means, but there are certain ones that they would not be able to do. And I've even heard a child kind of, without telling it to anyone, but exclaim to himself that, this one is the difficult one, right? And this one was the forward fold with the legs on the floor. So it's the Upavishta Konasana. So that means the back part of the leg and the hip joints were already tight at the age of 5. So that just confirms that this being brought this with him, right? This is the reflection of the mind that reincarnated. So this is a bit of a side story that was needed to explain that everything is basically the mind. So then the question is, how do we work with the mind? Well, the answer is we need to give it full attention. And this is exactly where the problem comes in with the gymnastic part of yoga. Because people don't treat it as the work with the mind, they treat it as just some physical stuff you just do. So you bend your body this way or that way, right? And nobody really tells them that to really get the whole benefit out of what you're doing, you have to be focusing your attention. So attention, attention, attention is the most important thing in life. Most people think it's time. It's completely wrong, right? Time I can spend doing some, say, for example, some asanas for 1 hour, or I can spend the same hour, I don't know, lying on the couch. Time, it's the same time. Or, for example, I can do asanas like the point I'm making, just doing them like a physical, bending the body back and forth. Or I can do them with full attention. Where the attention needs to go, we'll mention in a second. But the point I'm trying to make now is that attention is of the utmost importance. It's not time. Attention is the spiritual currency. That's the most precious commodity that we have, right? So a short life, but with a very focused attention, with a lot of mindfulness, with a lot of kind of being and with a lot of presence, is a much more worthy life than a long one with a mind that's scattered all over the place. I mean, to me, it's a fact. And we're not here to say, oh, this life is better than another. I mean, it's hard to even make those distinctions. Not hard, probably impossible. But the point is that attention is the ultimate currency, and it's of utmost importance. And it's also the thing that's lacking in this entity that I dubbed Instagram yoga, or the yoga that's currently present in the Western society. So let's talk about it some more. Where does attention need to go when we're practicing if we want to extract the full benefit, right? It needs to go to the sensations that are created by the asana, or breath, or perhaps both. So what that means, as you're putting yourself into the asana, it'll create some sensations. At first, they're usually not pleasant, right? And even later, they're not pleasant, but this edge gets taken away. So for example, for me personally, it took a few months to take that edge away. But for the first few months, I was literally leaving a puddle of sweat on the mat when I was practicing. And it wasn't even that intense. It was just so many emotions and just this raw kind of stuff that was sitting in the body that was coming out, right? It was leaving the body in this kind of state. I remember tearing up involuntarily because just this kind of stuff associates with tears. For example, some emotions that are related to tears, right? And if they're sitting at the surface, it was a low-hanging fruit. So as soon as you start practicing, it starts coming out. So that was happening. But to get the full benefit, you have to have your attention in there. Why? Because if you don't have the attention in the proper place, you're actually creating new problems for yourself. What that means, you have different layers of the mind. So you have kind of a surface level where you cognate at a day-to-day base. Then there is, say, something we could call subconscious. Then there is this kind of bottom layer that's always in touch with the body. Well, if you're not really making proper attention, putting it in the proper place at the top level, then if you experience something, the bottom layer will react. And if you don't kind of consciously, mindfully live through that, or don't react, but just watch and observe that, then you created new problems. And I argue that that's exactly the problem with the Instagram yoga. So someone might ask, well, what about flexibility? Well, let me give you an example. I would like to give an example from a Vipassana tradition. So perhaps some of the viewers, if you've ever attended a Vipassana retreat in the Goenka system, you might find this useful. If you haven't, just follow along for a couple of minutes and we'll get back to the topic. But I really want to explain this. So in the Vipassana tradition, when we sit and we try to focus, say, concentrate, or maybe even practicing Vipassana itself, we're sitting and we are trying to observe things as they are, just without reacting neutrally, just without making any judgments, or without trying to get rid of something, or without really clinging and trying to bring more of something, right, if it's something pleasant. Well, if we don't remain equanimous, right, don't have this steadiness and kind of evenness, even-keeledness, and something happens, then we're creating new problems, because that means on the bottom layer of the mind, there is a potential that that bottom layer will now react and create something what's called sankharas, which is basically mental imprints. So these reactions are new mental imprints that could happen. So in Vipassana, they say the best thing you can do is just not react and just by watch. And if you do that, then these things that come up, suppose you have some pain in the legs or in the back that comes up, They say that this pain, these kinds of sensation, is the vehicle that helps you basically work through the stuff. And you should use that most effectively to get rid of some stuff in your mind. Well, my argument is that the same exact thing happens in yoga, except here we're talking about also sensations, but there's also this kind of flexibility that gets piled on top. And this is where the karmic versus the kind of just the state of the mind as it is comes in, right? So by getting more flexible, say as a gymnast, karmically we're working through certain things. In other words, yeah, this person brought some tight hip joints, for example, and that corresponded to some states of mind, some emotions, some properties, and so on. And by working, whatever, 2, 3, 5, 10 years, and say being able to do Baddha Konasana or Padmasana, which is the lotus pose, right? So they get some flexibility, they cross the legs, and it seems nice. So they're a yogi. But if the work didn't happen with the proper attention, that means, yes, they got some benefit from that, because make no mistake, there's definitely work on the mind that happens even in that case. But the problem is that this efficiency with which it was done, the possibility is lost. In other words, if we could have gotten 100%, in that case, for example, we get 10 or maybe 20. So we lose this 80%. By putting the attention at the right place, which is the sensations in the body that the asana creates, or the breath, right? And I know there is this term of drishti, which is where the attention needs to go. And there is kind of a different drishti, meaning some of it is just visual, oh, like look at your arm and so on. That's just to help you align the body properly. And then they'll say things like antara drishti, that means inner attention. So that means, okay, now inner work happens, must go into the sensation, must go into the breath and so on, right? So if that person did that and worked like that and achieved the same result in terms of flexibility, they would have also achieved a lot of advancement in terms of work on the mind. And this is exactly what's lacking. So people are doing yoga even, getting some kind of quick result, not quick results, but just these results, because they're not necessarily quick. In fact, I would even say if you don't put the attention in the right place, your results will be slow, because something about our attention, our mindfulness, it's like a laser that just evaporates things in our mind. And as I said, mind is just it reflects to the body. So the state of the body is the state of the mind. So if we put the attention in the right place, time-wise, it would be a faster result, but it would also carry a lot more change to the mind itself. And that is exactly what's missing. So as you have probably understood, or hopefully understood, attention is a hugely important thing, right? As I mentioned many, many times before, attention is the most important thing in life. It's not time. Yes, time is running out, and we get that, but it's what you do with that time, and that's determined precisely with your attention. So just to give you some more examples, reading good books versus reading the Facebook feed. I mean, maybe you have some great books on your Facebook feed, so I'm not sure, that's possible, but maybe it's not a good example, but you get the point. So it's where you put the attention. It's not, you can be reading is the same activity, but how you're reading and what you're reading, it's determined by the attention. So just to create a bit of a summary, once again, the difference between yoga and yoga as exercise, or this Instagram yoga that's now prevalent in the Western society, and all kinds of other types of yogas that manifest this strong attachment to the physical level, right? That gets stuck on the physical. It's this attention thing. It's where the attention gets put that determines whether real yoga is happening, or this kind of, I don't know what to call it. I've already gave you several nicknames for it. But some people might even argue that real yoga starts when a person gets cross-legged on the mat. And there's certainly a lot of merit to that statement. In other words, when the real work with the mind starts, that's when the real yoga begins. But that need not to be an exclusive case, because we can make the physical asanas also real yoga. We just have to put the attention into proper places. So I encourage you to do it. Thanks for watching this video. See you again in future videos. This is Raw Deal, Yakov.